education and encouragement, item 8C. How do you want to?
Do we have later on the agenda a general discussion of the things in the packet, or should we go to the thing on Safe Routes to School now?
You want to start with the Safe Routes to School one?
Well, what I'm saying is there were several work plans to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to just wait and look at that point, or do we
no? I say we put them inside here.
Okay.
And then that way, if what we can do is we can go one by one through it. Whatever you guys want to do as a commission, go one by one and talk about them. I can kind of give like a little brief update for those that are new. So Measure B education encouragement funds were brought to. They were a sales tax measure that was passed in 2016, implemented in 2017, was supposed to start. It was put in a lawsuit. So those funds were put in escrow in a holding account. And our goal has always been to start working on them, start planning for it. It's always been in our annual presentation. We've always had it listed in our strategic plan. It's nothing that's not familiar to anybody. But you know, I'll make a personal comment. I am totally aware that that it's easy for us to be futuristic and to look out into the future because we have time to do that. But as a city staff member myself in Oakland, I totally understand that you got to work with what's given to you right in front of you. And I'm pretty sure that most cities are going through that right now because Lauren Ledbetter came here in May and told us that, yes, all the funds have been released and they've gone through VTA board and start getting a plan together. So we started putting some brainstorming plans together, and then we were told we got to wait for the funding agreement, and so we waited for the funding agreement, and then the latest one is that so the funding agreement was signed by City Council, but now we're waiting for an actual template to put any measure, any program you want to do. You got to put in that template, and then you got to mail that to the director that's in charge. And then you have to get authorization based on that. And I'm not sure if they mail that back or email that back. So what we're trying to do is basically start building templates of, these are things that we've already done as a commission, whether it's Bike to Work Day, stuff at St. Isidro, Safe Routes to School, National Night Out. We listed a bunch of them. And what I learned from when I sent that one that we did last month is that was too broad and you needed to go deeper into each of them. So if you look in your packet, we've basically gone deep into a lot of them. And so we've got a general Measure B work plan that we just do total. We've got a community engagement work plan. We have a Safe Routes to School work plan. We have a Bike to Work Day work plan, community bike walk and counts work plan, and then I think the last one is the online media work plan. So we have experience in all of these except for maybe like a more technical bike walk count where like a contractor would actually go out and do it. But as far as like boots on the ground, when Elisa did her last ATP grant writing, we helped and volunteered, and she gathered up volunteers to actually do physical bike walk counts. And of course, once a year, we do it at Bike to Work Day and send that back up to the county, or actually back up to the Bike Coalition, who sends it to MTC, who sponsors the whole entire thing. So this is a chance for us to talk about any of these. I'm already super familiar with it, so I don't really want to be redundant and read everything from it. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to also provide this as a platform for staff, so they can look at these plans and see if this is something that makes sense. Because we were told in June, well, we were told when Lauren was here that that there really is no staff time or any champion within staff to be able to actually implement any of this and to actually do any of it. So a lot of it was going to have to continue to be on us, which we know that's not sustainable forever, especially if the 5 of us decide to leave and you don't have someone else that's here. But at the same time, we're all super motivated enough that we already do this stuff anyways. And we know that we're not willing just to let it go. Just be like, oh, whatever. We'll just deal with this some other time. I think these are good plans. We've shared these with a couple other organizations and cities as well too, because I feel that the more we can share and collaborate, the better. So I don't know if that template has been sent back yet or not from VTA, but she was supposed to send it back. But I was hoping that at least you'd be able to tell us what staff's plan, if there is a plan, and how this can fit into that.
Chairman Henson, thank you for that very detailed description of what the commission has been doing, and I am very familiar with the effort that you guys put together, put this together. And it's going to help us from the staff perspective. It's going to help us put together a work plan and informs our partnership discussions with other entities. As you mentioned, this is a 2-year agreement with VTA, renewable depending on performance and metrics. And we did get council to approve the draft agreement. Apparently the draft that we presented to council had some little changes made to it by VTA, so they just sent us that updated agreement last week. So once that agreement is executed, the next step would be to put together the work plan in terms of the activities, responsible personnel or staff, and the measures associated with it, with that, and the metrics. For example, if it's outreach, we have to define the metrics. Is it so many people per so many days, or is it so many bikers in so much distance? We have to come up with that applicable metric, and then show that we are measuring it either on a quarterly basis or annual basis. So we hope to work with the commission in developing those criteria and matrices, share that with VTA, and also work together on any partnership opportunities. We are working with Orbit Hill to see if we can put our resources together and perhaps develop a comprehensive outreach plan or education plan that will work for those cities, but it will help us optimize the dollars that we get. So we welcome any and all feedback and input that we can get from you. If you give us a few weeks to look at this material and also work with VTA to see in what format and what type of content they want to see from the individual jurisdictions, and we'll report back to the commission. Hopefully at the next meeting, if not 2 weeks.
Because we're probably going to end up going dark in December because it falls on Christmas Eve.
That's right. So that will be January.
Yeah. So So I mean, there's no way that you guys could come back in November, so we could start.
In all reality, we don't even have an agreement, so we can't even receive the check. For reference, you may know about the advance payment of $240,000 in local streets and roads program that the money was accumulated. We received a symbolic check, I would say in March of 2019, but the actual check, the actual money came in about a month ago. So even though the money has been accruing and sitting in an account, it's going to be a while before we actually get to see the money because of the processes involved. That's not to say we won't start working on these partnership opportunities and putting the work plan together as soon as we get the format that we need from TA.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as seeing actual dollars coming into our coffers that we can use, I would say it's going to be a few months.
Well, I think we have to spend it and then get reimbursed. If they're not going to give it to us to spend it. That's what I've heard.
I thought this was formulaic based, so would get the money based on population, much like the.
That's true, but the specific, like, so when I sent them a general work plan, they said you got to get in deeper into that, and we're going to send a template. So deeper would mean like, just like you said, you know, okay, let's do a community engagement work plan. Let's talk about the goals, events we're going to do, the matrix, and the cost. All right, so this would be an actual plan, and you come up with what you're going to do, and this is how much we're going to spend, or whatever, and then this is what you get approved through BTA on that template. You spend it, and then once you've incurred the costs on it, that's when you get reimbursed from it. That's what I read in that funding agreement, unless it's changed.
Okay, I have to go back.
But it's not a. We'll give you $35,000 a year, and you can do what you want.
I have to go back and read the agreement if the money is fund loaded or assigned to us, but then we have to report how we spend the money versus we spend the money and then we want to reimburse it. I have to go back and check and get back to you on that.
Yeah, and kind of like Zach was describing, we've been hearing about this for years, but it's just this small amount of money from the perspective of, you know, the city and other entities, but it's the money that, you know, pertains to the stuff we're working on. So we've been reading the materials pretty closely, and everything they put out is kind of suggested that it might be a reimbursement situation, which then the city would have to figure out how to handle that. But yeah, you'll look into it.
Yeah, let's look into it, and if it's a reimbursable situation, then we would have to do a budget amendment. I don't think we were expecting this money to come in initially, and we would expend it. It would be a revenue, and then we would draw down from it. If it's the other way around, then we would have to do a budget amendment. And in order to do that, we need to know how much we will need, and that it's only going to be what we can afford. So regardless, this work plan will help us identify how much money are we going to need in this year. I understand there is some accumulated money, and that may be coming to us. But until I see the money, I don't want to commit it to anything that we may not be able to deliver. So
I'm pretty sure we're not going to see the money until you spend it.
Right. So you're right. That's an extra challenge of that. There is money that's accumulated, and then budgeting to, if it is a reimbursement situation, budgeting a larger amount of money than just, you know, $35,000 a year.
yeah. So let's look into it and get back to you on the two aspects. One is whether or not it's a reimbursable arrangement, and two, when and how those accumulated or accrued monies would be delivered to the cities.
And as far as metrics, the people from public health who've been working on the Safe Routes to School project and applied for the ATP grant to do a more community-based project, they're used to having to evaluate and do metrics for things, so they can possibly give pointers to, you know, lead us in the right direction quickly. I think some of us commissioners have some experience in that realm too, but not necessarily specifically with these issues. So Elisa Campbell would be the contact for that from public health.
Yeah.
Do we, besides that though, Zach, do we, as a commission, there's an opportunity now for people to look through these and make comments or suggestions? Now would be a good time for that, even though it seems like it's going to be on our plate for some months due to not being able to do anything with it immediately.
So yeah, the only comment I would make to that is it's wait to see what format and what form we need to use, and see how we can fit these individual work plans into that format, and how many of them would perhaps have to be filtered out because either we can't cover those activities, or because they're maybe outside what we considered the scope of this.
So when we reviewed this back in May, and we talked about the items that were the projects for Measure B that were funded that you have to go through a grant process. We were told by Gary that that I asked him, I was like, well, if they have, if there's matching funds or however you get this, how do you get those projects if you got to wait for the money? And he was under the impression when he told us that basically what you do is the city always has money to, if you get in a contract and it says, okay, we are going to get, you've been awarded this project, go ahead and start. And as you know, you don't get the money right away, but you're still able to fund it and then get reimbursed from it. So are you saying that there's no way that the city can spend like $6,000, submit the work plan, the template, and to be able to get funded back, you have to get that, you have to budget the item and put this in the budget in order to get reimbursed? There's no funding?
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is if this money, so let's use an example of a federal aid project. We have grant monies that come to us from federal aid, two types of federal aids. One, that are reimbursable type commitments. So we allocate the budget, and we perform the work. We submit for reimbursement either on a quarterly basis or once the project is completed, and the city is made whole once the work is completed and certified and verified. There are cases like the Measure B monies or the SB1 monies that we get regardless of whether or not we have completed a project, but every year we have to submit a measure of effectiveness report. That shows that we have met a certain threshold. So what I'm not clear at this point is whether or not this grant money or this funding is really not grant money, but it's formulaic-based distribution of tax money, right? But we don't know. I thought it was going to be much like the local roads and streets funding, which is close to $1 million that the city would give its own population. And there's a measure of, I forget the term, maintenance of effort. I'm sorry. So there's a maintenance of effort requirement. Because we get this money that we have to show, we've met at the minimum, we've spent money, $1 million, $1.5 million on roadway improvement related things, paving, striping, and not knowing exactly how the VTA will audit and account for these dollars. It would be risky for us to budget for something and expect reimbursement, if that makes sense.
No.
It doesn't make sense.
Okay, so I'm just going to use an example. We have a community engagement coming up in Las Madres. We're going to be staffing a booth. We're going to be doing education and encouragement. We have a work plan for it. Okay, we have metrics, we have goals, we have project reach, we have everything. Okay, let's say you send this into VTA, and VTA says, great, go ahead, you got it. Go ahead and, you obviously have to stay within budget. You only get $35,000 a year, plus we have that stuff. So it's only going to cost us $2,000. Okay, you get approval for it. Is there money in the city of Gilroy to be able to say, okay, guys, go ahead. Here's the $2,000 expense for that, and then we already got this approved. We already set the template in. We got affirmative. Go ahead and do it, and then you send your receipt in or your invoice or whatever. You send that to VTA and you say, hey, I need $2,000 back for this, and they've already approved it. Do we not have a way to front that money to get a reimbursement? Because we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions. We're talking very small amounts.
Okay, so
that's what I'm talking
let me
about.
make sure I understand the question. So the agreement has been signed between BTA and the city.
Mm-hmm.
We are assuming that the agreement has been signed between BTA and the city.
Mm-hmm.
BTA has shared with the city the format and how monies would be dispersed or reimbursed, depending on how.
Well, that's in the funding agreement.
So yeah, I have to go. That's why I say I have to go back and read whether it's a disbursement or reimbursement.
Okay.
Arrangement.
All right. Let's just say that it's a
If
reimbursement.
reimbursement.
Let's use that example.
If it's a reimbursement arrangement,
Okay.
then the city, we would have to include that in our budget. It has to be, every dollar we spend has to be approved by council.
Okay. So if you're saying that has to go back for budget, when will that get put back into the work plan to be put in the budget?
So there are two ways to amend the budget. Either associated with a given contractual action
Mm-hmm.
or at the mid-year budget review. So
Mhm.
the council has a 3-year operating budget and a mid-year review.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an opportunity to amend the operating budget at that mid-year review moment, or as you may have seen in some cases when we have contracts and let's say we have a contract amendment, we come to council and request a budget amendment so we can proceed with the work.
Which could happen at any given council meeting, because I've seen that
Correct.
with contracts.
Yeah.
So we have a funding agreement contract with VTA. There's no roadblocks in the way that would not prevent that from coming back to council. Let's say once we get a template and you're gonna insert, you got approval, go ahead, $2,000, you're good to go just for this one. There's no reason to say that could not be added to the city council's agenda.
Technically, no. We could come.
You could
council
follow that
and-
past practice and ask for it.
So this would be a first time. We haven't done this type of budget amendment in this amount before. So I can't say yes or no at this point.
No, I'm just talking about the
But
format.
As related to a certain action that council has to take. So the reason we come to council is if a contract amendment, to use that example of a contract amendment or even a new contract.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we would come to council is because that contract by code has to be, if it's over a certain threshold, has to be approved by council. And council can't approve that without obligating monies in the budget for that particular action.
Isn't that like $50,000 or more usually?
Well, what's the threshold?
I think it's $50,000, isn't it?
The threshold is if it's a new contract, it's $100,000. If you had a contract that was approved, and now the change is $5,000, you still have to come to council because you added to that. Or if a contract was $10,000 or it's $80,000, you have to go to council. Now you have $30,000 change. You have to take it before council, and if that money is not in the budget, you have to request the budget. So what I'm having difficulty relating that to what you're saying, Chairperson Hilton, is what action are we bringing to council that will require them to approve that would also require a budget amendment? Because the council is not approving the work plan, right? We're asking council to obligate funds to, so that's, we're not amending the agreement with VTA,
Mm-hmm.
right? The agreement with VTA has been approved in legal standing. So that's where I am not clear how we would, the mechanics of how we would do a budget amendment after this. Obligate funds so we can allow, shouldn't say allow, so we can accommodate for this activity to take place, making sure that the city will be made whole because we have monies available for this type of effort. So we are in that, I would say, growing pain mode where, this is a new program, a new funding source. We're all new to this, right? So we don't want to take actions that would unnecessarily damage the city and spend monies that we would otherwise not recuperate in the future. So that's why I say we have to check and get back to as far as the mechanics of how the monies will be dispersed or reimbursed.
I think one key thing also to note is the amount, right? It's not a typical $50,000. It's almost petty cash type of thing, expenditures that plans are for. So that has to be considered. Maybe there is a different process than having to go to council to budget. Maybe there is already a fund. Small spends, because it is a small spend.
So even a petty cash would be, I don't have a petty cash today. We don't use a lot of petty cash. It's in my direct control. But to the extent that there are, in our budget, there are line items that could apply for this purpose and not committed, we can look at those and we have to see what it's in Gary's budget under engineering, traffic, transportation. That's the area we're looking at. As you know, we maintain the status quo budget. The council approved the status quo budget. So what that means is we are anticipated the same level of activity as the prior year, prior fiscal year. We expect to do the same. So if we spend money on this particular activity, then there has to be something that will come off of our
Presentation of some sorts.
sorry?
Sort of presentation to the city council of some sorts, outlining the funding and what we believe it to go towards, a budget item.
No, that a different type of budgeted item will have to be.
Something has to come off.
Come off.
Yeah, so if, and I don't think we have a dedicated budget for bike and ped. There's a commission, all commissions get, I forget the amount, but there's an allocated amount for commissions. Right? But we're not talking about that kind of expenditure. This is a separate expenditure. It's not in lieu of that budgeted expenditure, correct? This is in addition to commission's budgeted activity. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So, so that's what I'm trying to understand and see how can we make this possible given the short time window, correct? And I don't have the answer for you at this moment, but it's something that
Go ahead.
I don't want to be too repetitive, but just so everyone on the commission understands. There is a template that from VTA that we don't have yet, so things can happen without that. And also, if there's going to be cooperation with Morgan Hill or something around a template that doesn't even exist, that will take some time also, but it could be worthwhile, in my opinion. And so it sounds like once we have those things, and the city staff also needs to figure out their process with this new funding source. And then I know we were talking about it being small amounts of money, but besides $35,000 a year, there's going to be $140,000 that up to that amount that can be spent that will be probably coming available, in 2020.
So what we're looking to do right now that would
One more thing though. So I think one thing though that Commissioner Hilton was interested in is there was talk of possibly funding like the stuff that our commission needs to look professional at events, maybe even outside of this funding source. And we're wondering if there's anything that could move that along, even if this other stuff takes longer. And then the rush on this stuff we're talking about is just that there's some things that have been happening the last few years that will cease until money possibly gets spent on them, and so they're losing momentum. And some of them involve a school year, so hopefully we could get something happening in April or May before this particular school year ends. But we'll see. We'll have to do our best. But as far as there was, stuff that we wanted to have for our, booths and events that could possibly be funding outside of this.
Any more discussion down there? All right. Well, what I'm looking for, and obviously this is the same exact thing we did last month and the same as our strategic plan and our work plans. They can change, anytime we feel that they can change. But, let's take ownership of what me and Sean and the rest of us have worked on tonight. If there's any updates that anybody wants to do, within the next month before the next meeting, we could always bring them back. But let's go ahead and establish these work plans and work with them. And yeah.
I have actually a good question about the work plans.
Go ahead. Which one?
Well, so the bike work day, we talked about the full time as a swag, maybe a T-shirt or something. I noticed you did have that list.
I thought I did.
Or that.
I remember talking about it.
I recall that in the draft. Let's find it.
Bags, tables, and bike lights, water bottles.
So it didn't end up in this one, but thank you for thank you for noticing that, because we did put it in the general one. So if you look at the second page in the general one, it says a design a Walk Gilroy, Bike Gilroy t-shirt. So, but that was my intention, to try to compete with them on that. So I'll write it in on this one and update that. Be like, hey, I already got mine.
Yeah, some of these items could be used in multiple realms of the work plan.
Well, I see the pop-up thing, which I think is sooner the better. I mean, that's.
We're going to continue doing community engagement. We have another one. All of them.
All those things.
Every single one of them. We're doing one this Friday. We're doing one Thanksgiving weekend. Yeah. Yeah.
We just won't have one.
We just won't have one.
Put stickers on this.
Yeah.
My is why don't we do just a suggestion? It says a bike to work day. Also to bike to school day, right? They're back to back, right? Bike to school day is Wednesday, I think.
Definitely.
Thursday. So I just make them combine, right?
Yeah.
Try to do both events.
Okay.
And then the last one there was
that would actually that one might be a little different, because that would be in more than one location, so that might actually be a separate one. But
okay, I was just thinking
that makes sense.
Tie it, right? They're kind of that one day a year that's just a national thing. Right? Wherever, you know, better than that too. And then our last question is the kids specialized outside or something? What is?
Which one?
Outright.
Out. Yes.
They changed the name of the program that you got.
Yeah.
Right. For focus is no longer. Wow.
It's called Outright now.
Outright. All right. Beautiful. Thank you. That's all I had.
If I may, Chair, then I see application engineer Gary here wanting to be a part of the discussion. So if I may.
He's jealous you took his seat.
Thank you for seeing that here. Thank you for sitting for me this first part of the meeting this evening, and I apologize for being late. I was in Monterey today at that conference. I'm happy to be back here. Monterey was a horrible place to be. It was a horrible 75 degrees.
Oh, I bet. The fog was not even there today.
So I'm glad to be back here. But yes, so in terms of the work plans, it's something I'm sorry to come late. Is this something you're talking about presenting as part of the work plan annual presentation to council?
Yes.
Okay, so that was part of the conversation, because I think we had talked about some of the things that you had asked for, and I myself had said last meeting, give me a proposal last month on pop-up. I can try and find a way to do it, expecting to see $100, $120 pop-up come, across my desk, and the $1,600 pop-up came across my desk, and I'm a little bigger than I had anticipated, and so that was not what I had expected. So that would be something you definitely want to present to council for their work plan for next year. So,
Well, no, it's not a work plan for next year. It's a specific item for Measure B, Education Encouragement Work Plan, that we'll be presenting.
but as you're talking about what you accomplished, and we're going to have a discussion about the strategy presentation to council, you should definitely be talking about what you want to do for your work plan for next year, and things you want to accomplish, and things you need for next year, and start putting that seed out there and have those items listed and get their feedback. This would be a good time to have that conversation.
And that particular item that we keep talking about, like pop-up, as we discussed, depending on council's opinion, that could even come out of a different funding source than the Measure B funds.
I'd ask.
Absolutely.
All right. So I just need a motion to approve these work plans.
Motion to approve work plan.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion passes.
Quick question. So when do we normally make our work plans that are separate from this? Or is that going to be changing? Because I know we didn't even used to do that years ago.
No, we don't set our work plan until after council next year does their strategic plan and goal setting, and that usually happens in February, March, and then we bring that back here and start doing ours March, April, and usually by May it's out. So it pretty much works almost on a fiscal year, not a true calendar year.
So then we have a presentation next month where we can plant seeds and talk about things, but then there's also more of a work plan presentation that comes in the spring.
Yeah, if they choose to do that again. That's what we did last time. Yeah, where all the commissions went up. Yeah. Next up is item 8D, Pedestrian Safety Subcommittee Interviews. Commissioner Patrick Flood, you have the floor.
So, as I've announced previously, I'm going to request anyone in the audience that is interested in joining this subcommittee for pedestrian safety to make their intent known. Is there anyone here this time? Yes, this man right here. Would you like to step up to the podium? What's your name?
My name is Jack Howell.
Nice to meet you. So, to be qualified for this subcommittee, you have to be a citizen of Gilroy within the last 3 years, have the available time to commit to quarterly data collection for the BPAC, and be willing to publicly present findings to BPAC meetings and or city hall when requested. Does that sound good to you? Fantastic.
I've been a member of resident this county for 37 years, so it's all retired, so I have time, and power to
And then be qualified. Awesome. So I have a few basic questions. Are you able to perform the duties of this role on a consistent basis as set forth by the BPAC? And we'll have all the information available for you.
I think so. I walk every day.
Okay. Can you commit to a 2-year subcommittee position period?
No. That's the hard part, because so far I admit, as we've discussed, not completely clear how this is going to work, how much data needs to be collected, what the reaction to that data is going to be, if it's productive, yes. Not productive.
Sure. A lot of that will depend on how this subcommittee progresses and as it fills out. The subcommittee will not even start until all 2 positions are filled. We will not be the only one gathering all that data. So yes or no?
I'm saying, look, let's see how this rolls out.
Okay. Got it.
Be willing to participate.
Okay. So if requested by the BPAC, would you be willing to source a replacement committee member in the event you can no longer participate in the subcommittee?
That could be difficult, given that so far I've been unable to find other people to join me in this. I approached a great candidate the other day, and overcommitted. So, I don't know.
If I got help from the county to also surface this and have it more widely publicized, which I'm planning to do, would that change your mind?
More widely publicized it is, better I feel about it.
Okay. All right. So number 4, is there a specific area of pedestrian safety in Gilroy you would like to focus on in this role?
So like I said, since retiring, I've walked 3,700 miles in 2 years, over 2 years, walking around this county, 7.4 million steps. And I retired because I was headed for a wheelchair physical problems. So when I retired, my goal was walk. When I started, I wasn't walking until I was done. If you were to walk with me, you'd see I was even wobble all over the place even today. Way better. Having mobility issues makes me really well aware of considered obstacles to be, hazards to be, as I walk our city sidewalks. I typically range from Monterey, Santa Teresa, 1st to 10th, with excursions to the outlets, to Kaiser, and Telly, as the Spirit moves me. There are lots of things that I encounter on a daily basis that are simply violations of city ordinance that have not been attended to in decades. There are issues related to motor vehicle laws that are being enforced. There's bicycles that I see. I don't see you guys, saw the exact ones. Bicycles that I see on a daily basis aren't following any rules at all. That's an issue, especially when they come up to me without warning on their sidewalk and going past me. They just don't realize how unstable I am. So far I haven't fallen, but it's a touchy situation. There's city infrastructure. The ADA report that's being conducted right now. Great. There's lots of intersections where there are no ramps. There's an incomplete set of ramps. I'd like to talk with you about what can we do with diagonal ramps issue. But better than no ramp. But there are places where it's confusing because when you put it on a diagonal, that tells me I can go either direction. And when you go receiving on the other side of the road, you might think. So lots of things, and I sent a note to Patrick, where I tried to list just in general the kinds of things that I observe on a daily basis. I know you want counts. Sure. You can do counts. Yeah. Pick a place and at times you want them. I made a mistake of coming past Brownell at 1:45 today on an early out. One nightmare that was. I avoid Brownell between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning for the same reason. I'm worried about the middle school and what the traffic on Brownell is going to be like, especially that turns on the First Street. The pile-ups at Miller and Third, at flashing lights no longer sufficient.
Yeah, you have lots of great feedback.
So, you know, there are, so I'm waiting to see, besides just counting pedestrians and bikes and taking pictures of intersections and making comments, for me, it's the whole package, it's the whole walking experience around the city of Gilroy.
Yes, I would love if you could just pick a general vicinity that is your weekly haunt, daily haunt, and just.
Maybe my daily haunt. Today's going to be 8 minutes. So.
Right. So you have that sector of the city. I'd like to have a sector of the city where you can expert on that. Let me know where the ramps need to be improved, where a crosswalk would need to be put. We need to have data behind that, and that's kind of where I would see being a unique spot. Having that sector of the city.
If you have some areas in mind, either review that list and pick from the list or add to it.
Yeah, and part of this subcommittee is revisiting the high collision zones. And I would love to at least have that revisited twice a year so we can see how that data has changed when it was initially reported in 2008. So a lot of what I'm basing this subcommittee on is previous data that has been collected. I want to see how it's changed. I want to work directly with transportation engineering to get your input to get this city the infrastructure that it needs for pedestrians.
You see the list and then we can go from there.
Sure, I can provide that with you. It's also in the documentation I have as well.
I'll give you my normal walking range. Anything inside that range is easy.
I'll give you the exact spots that need to be revisited, and if you can pick something specific with pedestrian safety, sounds like curb ramps are definitely up your alley. I would love if you could just give us direct feedback on that, and this would be great to present to our feedback. and maybe eventually get enough data to present to City Hall.
Programs go through intersections all the time. It's easy to stop and take pictures, make notes. And standing in one place and counting people and lights is a little harder for me than standing in one place. But that can be done depending on how much time you want in each place.
Right. Okay, one final question.
Sure.
Are you able to attend BPAC meetings when necessary for data presentation or for commission members?
I'm sure you are. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, fantastic. I feel safe in asking for a motion to add Jack Howe, the third, as the first member of 3 members of the Pedestrian Safety Subcommittee.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Next up is item 8E, Bicycle Pedestrian Commission Monthly Award Nomination. So yeah, no, I definitely think that we should try to get someone in before the end of the year. Did you have someone in mind for the November one already?
I have someone in mind. Is anybody else?
The only person that I want to get before the end of the school year is I wanted to nominate Scott Otteson, principal of El Roble. This might be his last year, so I want to be able to recognize him before the end of the year.
Before the end of school.
But it doesn't need end of school year.
Probably have one more feedback.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if there's someone else for that one, he can be pushed off until next year.
Arnulfo Velasquez is someone I met at San Ysidro Park Community Center, working with Nueva Vida. He, in conjunction with the Spirits Night event and some bike stuff that we'll talk about later on the agenda that's happening this Friday, he took it upon himself to organize a community fun run and to work with the high school cross-country coaches, and I was talking to some middle school people today to start a community fun run there from that park, and then utilizing the new channel trail. So he kind of appeared out of nowhere and decided to create a run all on his own in a community that really needs to make use of that new trail and make sure everybody's exercising and living healthy. So that's who I would nominate.
Can you just spell his name for the record so we can get it?
Arnulfo, and then Velasquez, Velasquez.
Easy. Okay. Yeah, I've got a thumbs up for me on that. That sounds great.
Sure.
Everybody in favor of that? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay. Any members of the public that wish to comment? All right. Well, that'll be fun. Thanks, Sean. All right. Item new business. Item 9A, Las Madres Turkey Trot. Commissioner Lionel Gonzalez. So let us know what you need, and then we can talk our way through it.
Great. Well, this is a first annual event for a nonprofit org, Las Madres, and it's a turkey top right geared towards toddlers, but it becomes a family event. Everybody's welcome. It could be our support or our participation or endorsement of this event. Could be as elaborate as the night out event that happened recently, where we gave out helmets and additional information. The stand that Sean supported.
Yeah, we do it again. There's a lot of helmets that the police officers have as well at their headquarters. So we can endless supply.
So it could be as elaborate as that. What they have to want to provide, and just reaching out to the community that day, right? Just showing some sort of support from our commission that, hey, we're behind you on this community event. Right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think the event fee is $100 for the water station. Is that correct? Is that what they charge?
They were luckily they sold already all their markers
Mm-hmm.
and the water station as well too. We would just support it with manpower, and it would have been nice if we had our custom logo out there.
Mm-hmm.
The tent, that
Oh, okay.
That would have been great to utilize it there, but we don't have one by then. We can survive with personal.
Okay. Okay. So there is no water station available then, or one of the mile markers.
There is a water station.
But we don't need to apply any like funding for it.
No, we don't need any.
Okay.
They don't need any funding from us. It's more of
Support, promotion.
educational awareness for
Perfect.
the day.
Okay. Well, I know I'm available. I'm excited to finally see a turkey trot in my own town without having to leave town.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm all for it. And as you can see in our consent calendar, we have that letter of support that we already drafted up for them.
And then can this be also endorsed in our Facebook page?
Yeah.
It's promoted.
Definitely. And I think the more engagement we can get to get locals out there on that day would be great.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can commit to it, and then we could just put all our resources together and try to figure out, the helmets and those kind of fun stuff.
Great.
Okay. All right. So, I just think as a formality, something like this that comes up where they know that we do community engagement events. We're known for it. That's why Las Madres reached out to us and asked us. In our strategic plan, we're here to commit ourselves to any organization that wants to promote healthiness and, as I stole Chad's coin phrase, free range people in the city of Gilroy. I'll motion to approve the community engagement event with Las Madres Turkey Trot.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Cool, man. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is item 9B, presentation to City Council. I'll go down to the kiosk down there and do it. So we had two, like I told you guys earlier, we had two that we had available to present, and from what I'm gathering tonight on the conversations we've had with Measure B, the funding, I'm thinking that there's many things in that first presentation that we could go over like we've done in years past, but I'm thinking that the biggest issue right now that for us to be able to communicate and have this opportunity is to really focus more on the Measure B stuff. And so what I'll do is I'll go through. How do you guys want to do this? You want me to go through this one first, or show you what the longer one would be first? Because it's easy just to click through it and you'll be able to see it.
Do this one first.
Do this one first? Okay. So usually what I end up doing is obviously we have photos on here, but then I also have kind of like a cheat sheet, as I'm going through there. And then so basically what I would do is on each of these. Let's see, these on the other one. So this one basically just talk about how excited we are to finally see this project happen on the first street striping, and talk about how we worked hard to advocate for complete streets approach to this project. And there's many bike improvements that we'll see once it's complete. These two right here, the bicycle-friendly community and access to water, these are two focuses of the Healthy Cities dashboard that the county has. So these are two check boxes that we agreed to as a commission to focus on. And we had more that we wanted to get through, but we slowly realized that just workload and everything, that it's easier to kind of focus on like one or two items. And I have two more that still need to be checked off, kind of a combined one that we can talk about in like the future stuff. So I think it's important to talk about the zero bike fixing stations. We've had a lot of collaboration, whether it's through public health, Gilroy Downtown Business Association bought one. Sunrise Rotary Club purchased that one right there on the right. And Lionel, I decided to keep your son in the picture of that downtown one. Yeah. So so right now there's 3 that are installed in the city, and there's basically 4 more that are going to be coming. The 7th one, it was planned at that Edgar Pass Ag Tourism project, and that I haven't seen any building plans on that at all. So but the other ones at the patios definitely coming in. The one at Gateway Park is planned, and then the one that Public Health is donating at on the levee back on Miller. And then I'll just kind of review Bike to Work Day, kind of talk about that stats. I think everyone's sort of aware that we're doing that, but we can get some stats and talk about that. And then the next slide, more accomplishments. Go over the Safe Routes to School Task Force, how that's still something that we're heading and that we're partnering with Public Health. But Public Health is transitioning out. I think that's really important to be able to talk about that. Specialized Foundation Riding for Focus, which I just remember now I got to change that. It's Outride.
Formerly known as well.
So in this one, just basically highlighting that it's been successful at Solano Middle School, and that South Valley Middle School is started a program, and Brondell, when they're finished with construction, will be also participating in this. And it's been well received not only by the PE teachers and the students, but also with the superintendent, Dr. Flores, on down. And I think Specialized Bicycles, being our neighbor to the north, is super excited that they have a place. As we saw when we did that one ride with them, they can bring down, their worldwide corporate. When they have their meetings there, they can actually just direct them. Hey, you want to go see what your money's going to? Let's take a drive 15 minutes south and go see it. And these kids, the one thing that's different about these kids as others is that they're allowed to go off campus. That's huge, and that's something that's supported. So I think that's something really key to highlight. Do Not Block the Bike Lane campaign. Another thing that we successfully did as a commission, and we did it actually in a pretty short amount of time, which I'm impressed with. And this was something that was in conjunction with City of Gilroy, Recology, our commission. It was all brought up from someone just like Jack, having a situation, a concern. There was a school teacher that was riding along Church Avenue, and she said, you know what, whenever I ride on Church on trash day, I'm going to be in and out of traffic. Is there anything you can do? Cool thing about this, and I was going to mention it later on, but Sunnyvale's BPAC picked up on this, and a couple other BPACs picked up on it, and they're trying to do similar campaigns. So I've reached out to them as I have with anybody. If there's anything that we can do to be able to share that love across this county or region or wherever, we can definitely talk about it. City Walk Sidewalk Survey. So this is something that staff got approved in that last budget. And it's super important because, especially if work like this subcommittee is going to get formed, that can nothing but enhance that. And then the Pedestrian Safety Subcommittee, which is pretty mentioned that's been established. And it's, I believe it's giving a voice to people that maybe never had a voice before. More to come. That was the last one. More to come. So this is the one where, we, like Gary said before, kind of talking about like, what's your future? What are you going to plan to work on? It's not going to obviously do a deep dive into our work plan because that doesn't happen until after the strategic plan. But more than likely, a few of these things are already on their radar. And so e-bikes, e-scooters, obviously that RFP ordinance in the first quarter of 2020. And then the back and angle parking, which is supposed to be coming back, and maybe Gary or Drew can talk about that later, because I thought it was going to come on October 21st, but it got pushed back. But we'll briefly mention about that. And then the online number 2. Now these are the ones that are on that Healthy Cities dashboard again. So what they did this year when they changed the format for the Healthy Cities, they combined walk-friendly city and bicycle-friendly community. So it's now one, where before it was its own separate star. So Patrick was going to try to go after that because I didn't want to go after another one. It took a lot of time, and I wanted someone else to experience what it's like to do that application. But even though it's combined, I still think it's something that's good to go after. I think we're headed in that direction, and I think it's good to have a base and then somewhere to reach to. Just things like that. That sidewalk survey is a huge direction in going. Yeah, no, we care, and this is what we're doing about it. NACTO design guidelines. This is something we briefly talked about a couple times. It's a checkbox. It's basically just a staff policy. It's very similar to how we did the access to water. It basically just means that and there's other ones to view off of, but it just means that this is what the engineers use, and this is what Public Works use as our design guidelines. And we've already been advised that, yeah, we already do use that. So, these things change every year, but that one is on there for next year. And I think it's something as easy as doing the same exact access to water policy. It just lets other people in the county know that is what we do. Gilroy City policy. So this is all the stuff that's going to come back after the BPAC. This stuff, same stuff we've been mentioning the whole entire time. Going over that parking policy that's old and outdated. I found another one just in, what was it? Planning Commission had a meeting, and there's a neighborhood district policy about how to build a neighborhood. We've never seen that. The last one they did was the Hecker Pass specific plan, building that neighborhood, and that was along 2005-ish, maybe. So going through each of those city policies and just putting more healthy language in there, and that's something that's also in the Santa Clara County, the Healthy Cities policies. The Hillside Adventure Park at Gilroy Gardens, we don't really have to mention anything on that. They kind of already understand what that is, but it's obviously something that we're going to be following next year. And then this is our chance to be able to highlight the Measure B education and encouragement. Where we are currently, where we have been in the past. It's something that we talk about every single year and multiple times a year. So I think this will be a good chance to highlight what we think what we think should happen and what our needs are. And then obviously thank you to Sheila and thank you to Gary. So that picture on the right, if you guys don't know it, that's the Las Madres women. They ride on Sundays, and one of these given Sundays they chose to ride from their houses and meet each other at Old City Hall and use our bike rack. And we did a video, online engagement with them as well. And then on the left, this is a crew. Their parents gave me permission to use this one. This is a crew that meets up after school. They're fifth graders, and I think it's just always good because I hear comments all the time where people are like, "Oh, this is just a veteran community. Everybody just gets in their car, they leave their garage, and they go. All the kids should just be bused to school and stuff." Not to these 6 kids. These 6 kids, that's how they get around. They use scooters. That's how they get to from school, and that's where they hang out after school. So I think like I've said many times recently, when we make these decisions, we got to not only think about the current generation, which could be the parents, but the future right there. So the decisions we make today will affect all of them later on in their life. And if we want to keep them around in this cool town, there's a lot of things that we need to do to change. So between now and then, if there's items that you want to add, you want to take out, but that's kind of the direction that I'm planning on doing. The November 4th is when our commission gives a presentation to council. It's generally at the beginning of the meeting, after a general public comment.
This is just one thing I think Gary made. I think somehow this is in here. There needs to be some slide for a canopy or a key thing, right? But all the stuff we're doing, here's something we are still one way or another would really help us continue this effort. Just sort of kind of get that seed set in their heads. So when Gary sees a $1,600, $1,200 canopy,
Oh, that's a good point.
So basically, what I'll do is there's a few of the council members that are already aware of what we're trying to do. Now that we've developed and we've approved our work plans, that what we think will work, that's easy to share. It's public. It's something that's already out there. But definitely, it's not. This is not the time to dive deep into it. But it's a time that, like you said, it's a time where we can talk about what we have, and for them, it's basically initiating it on an agenda item. Get them.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about every council meeting somewhere. We talk our commission meeting. Some are always like, we're at this event and have that meeting, have a canopy. At least every other meeting we have a talk. I just think it's something somehow at the end you say, what really could, what I think could really help us with is canopy. Just, I think something, because it's not always a chance to talk to city council, right? Send emails. I'm sure they get a lot of emails too. So that's just my thought. So
like an application slide?
Well, yeah, I agree. That was basically the same thing I was going to suggest. So maybe that's part of one of the work plans, or possibly more than one of them. But maybe we could highlight that specific item as something that they could possibly approve funding for, or even outside of the Measure B work plans. We could mention that to them.
okay. A last one says request.
So it's under the community engagement work plan. So just highlight that.
And mention all, the number of events that we do, and mention that that's an item that we needed and that could be funded, without Measure B funding.
But I think where you say, in our work plans, the one thing that's constant for every single work plan is the canopy. Right? Because everyone work plans, it's all the very first line was, the canopy, public canopy. So just, again, I'm not quite sure how we tap it. I think just somehow it's a chance just in front of everybody. All this we're doing, we can really use this. Not too expensive, canopy. That was,
Okay.
I don't know. I think.
Anything else? We have 2 weeks, so you can give me other feedback or things you want to take in or take out.
I'm behind Chad's suggestion. I'm surprised that I didn't think of it myself. If we did end on a slide that talked about the momentum we have in engaging the community, building off that momentum by having this pop-up tent for enhanced visibility and for maybe even attending more events, I think that'd be a pretty powerful message to send.
One request, one current request or something. Could help now, we go through that whole process.
Okay. Good.
Actually, do you have a picture, possibly a picture from that ride we did with the socialized learning focus, or now? I think because we have city council, we have school board there. There's a lot of kids. There's a lot of. I think.
Put it in this. I can put it in that one.
Yeah, something if you can fit it in there somehow. I think that would.
I can just take out the. I can take out the. This one right here.
And put that there. I think it's cool because you have specialized there. You have Debbie Floors there. You have Enrique was there. Twins.
Yeah.
That would celebrate the collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. And talk about the collaboration as this picture shows, and it's got kids, right? It's okay. Thanks for putting together.
That can also be an opportunity to possibly work something in about, why some of this matters. I saw some statistics recently about that. It used to be that majority, maybe 6 out of 7 trips that kids would take just 20 years ago would be on walking or on a bike, but now it's like 1 out of every 7 trips.
All right. So moving on to item 9C, reimbursements from the CalBike conference. We won't talk about what we did at the CalBike conference quite yet. I'm sure people will talk about that in the commission member report. But we had an expense of, so as you guys know, in the training budget, which we have, where do I have it? We have $988 left in there. until next June of 2020. And the lodging cost was $785.52, and then the parking cost at the airport was $90. So what we're looking to is to be able to get that, get those travel expenses paid for, which we're allowed to do in the training budget. So this is a time if anybody has any comment or anything. Any members from the public that wish to comment? All right, so I just need a motion.
Well, I'd like to do a motion to approve these travel expenses from the training budget.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next update is the website update.
So, in accordance with the website update procedure that I have agreed with Neuron, we would propose another addition. That would be adding the Measure B work plans to the website and removing the event flyers. So I'll be mocking up what that looks like, and I'll be forwarding that to Neuron for his review, and I anticipate that to go within the generally agreed time frame.
Yeah, because especially the event flyers, like how he created that calendar on here is a way better way because they highlight and then they fall off.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that way we don't have to keep them on there. But the only one that's still on there that maybe we should consider keeping is the high school mountain bike team recruit flyer. So I don't know if there's, maybe that shouldn't be called event flyers. I don't know I'll leave it up to you.
Can you change the name?
We can change the names. I'll propose a name and solicit your input from that.
Yeah, so it's, but I think it's still trying to to help recruit the South County Composite.
Say recruiting or something.
Yeah.
Recruiting 7th and 8th grade.
Well,
I think it's something.
it's part of the outreach, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
maybe it needs some outreach.
Okay. All right.
So, motion to approve the Measure B work plans added to the website and remove event flyers.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next up is the Duro repair station in downtown. So I got the parts from the last meeting that we did, and I replaced everything that was on there, and everything went fine. But when I went to go try to put the plunger back inside basically I'll tell you what ended up happening, and I'll know how to recognize it in the future. Somebody literally took a small little tiny screw out on the pump, okay? And so what that caused is basically the plunger was just free going, right? So anytime someone came up to try to use it, that little tiny piece was gone, so it was scraping the inside, right? So now when you put it all back together, it's all nice and smooth. There's no positive pressure that's created in the plunger.
It's got a groove.
Yeah, there's grooves. So the guy told me, he said, look inside there. And I looked inside there, and it's just like grooves all down the sides. So this expense right here, as you can see it on the invoice, that basically buys us a new tube for it. And I really don't expect, this hasn't happened to the Gilroy Library one, and it hasn't happened to Gavilan College one. And from talking with the guy out of Duro, it's not something that happens very often. Those are really hard to get off. I mean, it's a security hex bit, so you have to have a certain tool to even get that off. But yeah, now that it's something that's recognizable, you can basically say, oh, all it is just missing that screw right there. And, take the pump off and put it back in service. So we still have $348 left in our public bike fund. That's another thing I'll be mentioning in the annual report too, is to try to do some recruitment for our decal program. Yeah, just a motion to approve.
Add a thank you for that.
Say that
The
again?
money, add a thank you for giving us the ability to now buy things like this pump. I think that'd be good to have. I'm sorry, change.
Oh yeah, to put it in there.
Your report say, add a thank you to the council. This money will this is good stuff for us. Like we're able to do with it. I think that's huge.
So just thank you for supporting the public bike fund.
Absolutely.
Got it. Thank you for support public bike
Real public comment.
downtown. Public comment?
Public.
Mr. Heath, freely speak.
So, Mr. Hilton, thank you very much for taking your advice. In the future, if you could just let us know, we'd be happy to and take care of any future issues with the site fixes.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So motion. All I need is a motion to approve 7140 and expenses from the public bike fund.
I would motion to approve 71.
40.
From the public. What was it called?
Public bike fund.
Public.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Commissioner, if you have the garage gentleman send me an invoice again, I can call in, purchase it with the credit card, and do the transaction.
Okay. Thank you. Item number 10, correspondence, the Spirits Night at San Ysidro public invite. So I went ahead and created this document for our community engagement that many of you have it in your packet. It's the same template that we've been using when we go to different events, just to highlight what we're participating for, what we're there for, and we're here to help and support San Ysidro on Spirits Night. Item number 11, oral reports by commission members. Sean, would you like to go first?
Sure. So yeah, I will be with Spirits Night, and I've been working with the community to plan that event. It's an event that they traditionally have, but we are now, before the normal start time of 5 o'clock, we've added, they will have a bike decorating contest, and then as the event continues into the evening, we'll be doing bike lunar smoothies, educational spin wheel, free helmets, and also the community run that I mentioned that a community member was putting together, who used to be on the cross-country team in South Valley Middle School and Gilroy High. Ronan Channel Trail, Neuron he's wanting to work to have a ribbon cutting, but it's my understanding that we're waiting for some railing to be finished before he can actually put that together, and then he's to communicate with various people from other organizations to schedule for them to be able to come. At this point, we moved ahead with a community celebration that will be near the trail and have bike and running and walking events, but I can work with Neron to possibly get the superintendent and some principals to have maybe school administration, board members, possibly even students come celebrate the trail opening whenever we can actually make that happen. But I haven't heard anything about an official date.
So I can give you a little bit of an update on that. My understanding is that we're leaving that totally in your hands. If you want to go ahead and schedule that, that's fine. I don't believe there's going to be any city actual ribbon cutting, but we'd be happy to participate in any ribbon cutting. Neron and I would go ahead and
Oh, okay.
Friday.
Spirits Night. There's already a party happening.
Well, I can see what I can do about trying to involve something Friday. But the first thing I would need to know is if Gary or Neuron is available Friday afternoon on such short notice.
I will see if
I can talk to the school district.
Cardboard cut at a meeting.
He's everywhere.
Otherwise, yeah, if that's not going to work, I think it could be awesome to have students from South Valley Middle School and maybe LA Elementary come and do something, and have Neuron there to see people doing that.
Do you have a specific?
Well, so if this Friday, there's events starting at 3:30 to 5, and then the main event that's traditionally just in the park starts at 5. But so anytime from that 3:30 to 5 window, the run will be going on. The run is from about the 4 to 5 time period, so we'll keep people actually running on the trail during that time.
If you want to send them an email,
yeah, I can send the details. Yeah. What else? I went to the campus collaborative meeting at LA Elementary School. That's where different community service providers meet to try to support that school. They were concerned about bike and pedestrian issues there, but some of the people, there's a new principal, and some of the community members there weren't really aware of all the effort that BPAC and city engineering and various people in the city have already made there. So I've offered them, I've suggested that they might want to take CHP up on free bike and pedestrian education, like how to use crosswalks safely. So CHP will provide that for free currently. I also passed along an update from Neuron about various improvements that have been made there already and other ones that are planned. Let's see. Only other update, I think some of the other commissioners will have possibly a lot to say about the CalBikes conference last week, or summit. It was a great experience. We made lots of connections with people from around the state and even around the United States. And learned a lot about events that we could possibly do in Gilroy, about trying to improve biking, walking in tandem with how that coordinates with housing and equity. One of the ideas that was kind of interesting that might be sort of low-hanging fruit is that some communities really make an effort to get people biking out to their wineries and things like that, and then they take that business support that they get and use that to help encourage bike and pedestrian projects in those areas and in the city as a whole. But like I said, I'm sure there's a lot we could share.
Which is the wineries?
Wineries, yes. So.
Okay, so can you dive a little more into that?
So the particular, we had exposure to dozens of different presentations and people we met, but one particular group that came was the Bicycle Pedestrian Commission from Lodi, and they actually just got going recently this decade, and what really helped them take off was working to get people doing wine tourism as an avenue to bike and pedestrian improvements as a whole.
So I know we can't, like, I was just bringing it up, that was brought to the to this commission. I was at this commission meeting, I think it was the same time that hotel was brought here for that sidewalk, and that was, this commission voted that down.
So when I was doing research on the Hampton Inn thing that's going on, I looked at that meeting notes and that came through. Henry Sturban put the out there.
So we should maybe, I don't know who presented that or thought of that, but maybe there's a contact number we can reach back out.
You could just ask Jane Howard.
Different commission.
Yeah, so that
feedback on why that was voted down?
No, it wasn't. It was just a talk.
Yeah, it wasn't really a vote, but they were saying that the overall feeling was
it wasn't
not for. They were not for. They were not for. So,
other update would be that I started working with South Lake Middle School today to help them, be encouraged to actually take the bikes that Specialized provided and start putting them to use. Because what's happened is I believe what happened is the superintendent made sure that they got the bikes, but they still need to get them stored and then get the PE teacher who's going to be the champion to actually start doing that. So I made sure he was aware that besides Specialized, there's myself and other commissioners could provide help and any help that they need in getting that going.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Patrick Plow.
So I had the opportunity to attend the CalBike Summit last week from Tuesday to Thursday. It was a great time. There was a lot of different parties there from both state and local levels. The best part of that whole summit was seeing how widely attended it was by Caltrans. So Caltrans District 2, 4, and 5 were present, and they all wanted to let us know throughout all the breakout sessions that I attended that this is a new Caltrans. There's going to be a new director at a state level for Caltrans. He's starting soon. He is a bike advocate. And so they're saying the past Caltrans, there was lots of hands-off or not as motivated for bicycle and pedestrian infra, that this will be changing, and that they're going to look towards improving a lot of their new projects and existing projects with this accessibility. It's really interesting hearing that. They had a lot of really well done data-driven presentations that had a lot of really good feedback and discussion from a variety of different bodies across California. I think we were the only BPAC from this far south, but everybody was really glad to see us there and see how involved we were and hear about exactly what we're doing on a small city level. A lot of the talks that we were privy to were Los Angeles based, and Los Angeles is a huge city in comparison to ours. Their problems are so deep set that you can't, this is a quote from one of the talks, you can't build yourself out of them. So we are lucky to get a Crossroads as a small city to take a lot of the feedback from these larger cities that are now stuck with these problems that cannot be easily addressed. So taking that feedback and seeing where we are and seeing where we're going to be in 40 years, maybe years after that, it was nice just to get that input and see exactly what the state thinks about infrastructure going into a Vision Zero concept, which would be no cars on the road ideally. And if it is cars, they're self-driving electric cars. How do we get there? So that was actually the theme of the conference. It's called Intersections. And it's almost like the intersection of a person walking, a person on a bicycle, and a car. How do you manage that? How do you make it make sense in the future? So I saw a lot of value in attending this conference. It's a bi-yearly conference, I believe it's at. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, I would definitely go again, just in terms of networking and ideas. I see a lot of value for myself continuing to go as long as I'm a member of this commission and all future commission members. So that's my brief update.
Thank you. Commissioner Gonzalez.
I spoke earlier in regards to the last mile, so I have no further comment.
Okay. Commissioner Reeder.
I have no comment.
All right, back to me. So just a couple of quick things that we've been following. The Hecker Pass, State Route 152 from Watsonville Road to Santa Teresa. Still working on, what's that?
Too dangerous.
Yeah. So our adopt a spot got rejected because of safety reasons, which is fine. But they have been out there. Several of us have either ridden our bikes out there or driven by there and seen the roadside clearing that they are doing. So they're making progress. The unfortunate thing is that when you neglect for years, it takes you years to bring it back. It's more than just a maintenance, and I'm pretty sure that they're starting to understand that when they're out there now. I actually ended up riding on Bursell Road, and I met Carolyn right there at the intersection. So we rode it together when they were actually doing work, and they were taking away about 2.5 feet of just rocks, debris, dirt, weeds, removing that to make the shoulder that much bigger.
Thanks.
And but it's going to take them a lot of work to do that. I also, if you guys remember the presentation we had from County Roads and Airports, the bicycle accommodation guidelines, they're still in draft format. None of that's changed yet. As soon as there's a moment for us to be able to provide public comment and feedback, they'll let me know. I got a chance to present at the Solar Tunnel Middle School on my college journey and how it brought me to today. And that was a blast. That was the first time they'd ever done that on college day. For my props, I walked in there with my Specialized race bike and my firefighter helmet and coat. So the kids thought that was pretty interesting to figure out how that journey happened. One thing that I wanted to do, actually I'll bring that up on future agenda items. Just to let everybody know too, I started the conversation with the Parks and Rec Commission and Adam Hennig to bring the bike portion back to the kids triathlon annually. They've taken that away when they moved it from when they moved it from Gilroy High to Christopher High. It hasn't been brought back yet. I think they're just kind of in a good moving right now. So I told them that, I wanted to look into changing that or at the very least stop calling it a triathlon because it's really not a triathlon. And then I too had a blast at Calbike. And there's way too much. I mean, we could have a study session on the stuff we learned and the stuff that was new. But I too was very impressed by the attendance, and especially by hearing from the Caltrans District 4 director stating that we can't build our way out of this, that it's going to happen too fast. So, adding 2 or 3 more lanes on a freeway is not going to solve our problem. But for me, I learned a lot about the legislation and policies and changes and different things that I'm trying to trickle into a little bit in our meetings, so we kind of have an understanding of how we can affect and how we can play a role on the state level, and how we are connected with a lot of the legislation that's trying to get passed. So that's all I have. Staff comments, number 12.
Thank you, Commissioner Hilton. I'm filling in for our regular liaison, Mr. Gary Heath, who is in the audience. I want to have him give you a brief update on the 10th Street project, which we were going to do a presentation on, but because of the delay in scheduling this or agendizing this item, we will not be able to do so. So what I would ask of the commission is perhaps to indulge us in scheduling a special meeting between now and 2 weeks from today, so we can give you a more detailed update on the 10th Street Bridge. What I can tell you today is in August 2019, we had a study session with council on major capital projects and funding needs. As you may be aware, thankfully for Gilroy, we have an assigned fund balance in the general fund of about $9 million. That's the good news. The not so good news is that we have so many unfunded mandates or deferred maintenance that results in major projects such as the 10th Street Bridge, the fire station upgrades and maintenance, the normal fire station, site improvements like the sports parks, and so on and so forth. At that study session, council told staff to come back with more specific information. And what we continue to this commission is that there are some design because of the excessive costs to these different projects, but particularly the 10th Street Bridge. And based on council direction, we may continue with the design or make some modifications so the project is somewhat affordable to the city. I don't know if Gary, if you're prepared to talk on that, or if we should just move forward with the schedule.
Yeah, scheduling a special meeting is the perfect time, because we're not allowed to have any open discussion at all since it's not on the agenda. It wasn't agendized. So I don't want any of us to get in trouble for having any sort of open discussion, or for you guys to feel that you made an attempt to come and you got our feedback, since we're not allowed to give any feedback because we're not allowed to have any discussion. But like I said before, the special meetings can be called 72 hours ahead of time. And I know that you can more than likely get a quorum working with myself and Patrick and Sean, since we're at home sometimes during the daytime. So it'll be easier on you guys. We do it during daytime hours, and we can meet anywhere that the public is open to.
Thank you very much for that information. While we have Gary Deepa here, maybe he can tell us about the backing angle, parking angle that this commission is interested in, where we are with that initiative, and what we've done so far, and what the steps are moving forward.
So my understanding is that our city administrator has asked us to put that on the back burner until next year. And we'll be bringing that back to council and asking them where on their work plan we would like to see that. And so we'll be scheduling that for a presentation to council at that time. That's my understanding.
Correct. So speaking of the work plan, I believe this is going to be on the work plan for the commission. Correct.
No, it already has been, and it's already been completed. We're done. We turfed it off to you guys. We already had a discussion about it, and we had a presentation, and we provided a recommendation, and it's it's in your hands now. There's nothing more to do.
So this commission has already heard a presentation on back in the annual parking. They've already provided a recommendation to council approve, basically their recommendation to the council to approve.
So there's nothing more we can do.
So then we would have to come back to it in the spring of 2020.
So
Whatever.
we've been asked by the city administrator to delay it a little bit until it's up on the council priorities until next year and bring it back to the council.
There you go.
Which would then bring it in line to be able to put it into play when we have our insurance back next week.
Perfect.
That concludes my comments. Thank you.
If I could add a few more things.
Oh. Yeah.
In terms of the bike-friendly community signage, we were hoping to have that signage up by now. We've been delayed because of some of the speed limit signage across putting up or scheduling to get put up. We'll hopefully have that put up by the next time we meet again. So that will be put up. We've got the signs order. I shared with you last meeting. We should have this up by our November meeting. In terms of the agenda reviews with Commissioner Hilton, I can't say that the way we've fallen off to doing that by email is working. A good example of that is missing having the 10th Street Bridge item on the agenda this evening. I'd like to go back to having meetings. I think that it provides us an opportunity not only to talk about agenda items, but collaborate on other bike-related things. Maybe not necessarily on the agenda, but for us to touch base more regularly and talk about items.
Yeah, I was ready for it, but no one ever emailed me nothing. So Wednesday at the last minute, I had to rely on something. Otherwise, this meeting would have gotten canceled.
Yeah. So I think we've gotten into a bad habit of doing by email between you and Sheila. And for me, things get stuck in my email. I lost track of things, and I lost track of weeks, literally. And so if we could schedule those in the week, and I'll work with Sheila to get those scheduled. Being scheduled.
Totally fine with me. That's on your guys' side of the table.
Absolutely
So
is. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
So in the future, we'll schedule those meetings, sit down meetings, and we'll get those done.
sounds good.
And that's all I have. I'll work with Sheila and get that test strip meeting scheduled.
Okay.
So is your preference to have it during the day or to do it maybe at 5 o'clock?
I'll speak for you guys, but I mean, I had mentioned doing it during the day because I thought that would be easier for you guys, and I know I'd rather be at home with my kids, and during the day, kids are at school.
Maybe
So-
the question of how many commissioners would like to see the presentation and
Is
what's
there-
their availability.
Is there a reason we can't WebEx? Called in at one time. What stops us from having remote?
2 people can do that, but not a quorum. We have to have a quorum sitting here, but then the other 2 could.
So if there's your 3 here, I'm in Palo Alto, I don't know.
You could call in, or if you guys want, I mean, we could try to do an evening time one if you guys want to do that.
Yeah, but I
I'm
mean,
up to whatever you guys want to do.
it during the day if a forum is required. Just the meeting ID, log in.
We would
What do you want to do, Chad? An hour?
We would absolutely do that, if not a half an hour.
I mean, you guys are all here. I think during the day is better for everybody. Don't hold it back to me, but if I can call into WebEx,
You
you'd have
can.
4 people, right? I mean, you'd have possibly 4 people here already, right? That's,
You can.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
And that way you can have during the day, we don't have to have that as an evening when the kids are home. and stuff.
Yeah. I'm just trying to limit the amount of time that I'm away from home.
I'm flexible, whatever works for you guys.
Okay.
Mondays don't work well for me. Generally, other days I can make work.
Okay.
How about if I send out a doable? Send out 4 or 5 times dates.
Okay. All right. Next up is item 13, agenda items for next meeting. Does anybody have anything? The only thing I have to add that we don't necessarily, well, we could either bring it back next meeting or bring it back next year. But researching, as we got that email from that past commissioner talking about the Hampton Inn and how there were some improvements or whatever that had been talked about, and he, in his opinion, the project's almost finished, and he hasn't seen a lot of the stuff that they approved here and the city council approved and was in the resolution actually there yet. So, and going back is one of those things where when me and you came on here, we didn't know, there's no way for us to be able to actually track that. And when something goes into play August of 2015, and then we're trying to talk about it now, it's too hard to keep track of it all. So one thing we have done with projects is we just put them in our strategic plan. But one thing we haven't done in that strategic plan is to put in any of these recommendations we've made on any project, and had input to actually put them in there so someone in the future, 5-10 years from now, can go back and go, oh no, we did that, take that off the project, or no, actually they were supposed to do this. It was this was something that we had talked about. This is something that was agreed upon. This was something that was in the the resolution and the plans, but it never got done. It fell through the cracks. So it'd be easy for me to go back and put those in there because I have the notes from most of our meetings, and I can go back and just write it in there real briefly in the strategic plan, and not even, we don't have to change our strategic plan right now. It's just, I can start creating that list for us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I guess another source for that information would probably be the presentations to city council. You would include them there, right? As accomplishments or whatnot. They go in there.
No. This is just being able to keep track of, like when we
long-term projects.
Yeah, like building plans, like stuff that we provided input on, or like in a lot of these planned unit developments, they say, okay, we're going to give back an amenity, like the patio did. The patio said, the amenity we're going to give back is a bicycle fix-it station. And everybody's like, great, that's awesome, But who's to say that if Groom leaves, Gary leaves, all of us leave, who's to say that there's so many other things to worry about than a bike fix-it station, right? That's who's to say that will happen, or for future commissioners to even understand, like, wow, these guys, when we pass off this stuff, they're like, look how many projects they were involved in. Let's make sure that actually happened.
So are you saying you would go through all the past recommendations of previous members of this commission and just sort of
No,
out of that?
No.
Forward.
Last 20 years.
No. The only thing I would do is stuff that we've been involved in ever since I came on, which is really probably been a handful of stuff, and we already have documentation of it, so it's easy for me to put it in there. Going past beyond this stuff, if Lionel didn't said it, I would have never done it.
Okay, so starting now, we would create some sort of tracking accountability.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That's it. Because otherwise, what I had to do is go through those minutes and just be like, I don't know when the Hampton was talked about, so you have to go back and search it. You have a suggestion?
The easiest thing to do is have project conditions approved put on the project.
Well, no, they were. No, that is, but
So if there's a project condition of approval, that's something that's tracked and caught before occupancy. So if they're looking at bike lockers or they're looking at bike racks, that's typically one of the last things that's put on the project with the landscape. So if they're not seeing that having been put in yet, that's typically one of the last things that's put on just part of occupancy. So it wouldn't surprise me that those aren't. But so we'll track on those things if their conditions are approved. What we run into situations is when you deal with the developers directly, like Mr. Bonney with patio, where that was done after the conditions were done, outside the development process, where you're making agreements outside of the process, we don't have a way to track those.
no. The patio project, that was all done through planning commission and the council. There was nothing done outside for the patio.
That wasn't though
The bike fix-it station?
that wasn't though something that was a code requirement. Bike parking is a code requirement, so we can require code parking because our code says you have to provide bike parking. A fix-it station though is something that's an amenity that was a negotiated item.
That wasn't negotiated after. That's in writing. The bike fix-it station?
That happened at the planning commission.
Oh yeah, and it went to city council. That's planned.
There should have been a condition of approval.
There is.
Well, then that is tracked through that. And,
Yeah.
And the inspectors, both the planning inspectors, the public works inspectors, and the building inspectors are supposed to go through those conditions of approval and make sure that those were approved and signed off on prior to the occupancy.
Yeah, I get it. It's still a human being doing a checklist.
So you shouldn't have to be tracking those as a commission if those are in conditions of approval. Is all I'm saying. You can, but you shouldn't have to. We should be doing our job.
Shouldn't have
We
to.
just pull those conditions of approvals from the drawings.
Yeah, but you would still have to know about it.
Yeah, but you just go through the drawings and say that it's in there. 'Cause if it's not in the condition, if it's not in the drawings, they don't owe it to anybody. So it has to be
I understand.
right? And so
I get it.
You put it in the drawings, and so if it's not in the drawings, they can say, "Oh, we're going to do that." If it's not in the drawings, they can't really hold them to it. So I'm saying, if it's in the drawings, we should be able to see there's a drawings. This should need to be done.
It's just part of their entitlement approval as well. They get the approval at the end that says, these are your approvals, congratulations, and these are the things you're going to do.
I'm not trying to create extra work for myself. If you guys don't think this is fun, I'm just trying to respond to what an email that we all got from Lionel that said the Hampton Inn looks like it's about to be open, but yet the sidewalk that they promised to go on the underside of 101 to connect to the Hilton, he says he doesn't see it. So if they're going to build a sidewalk in a moment when they get there.
So the question is there a drawing that shows a sidewalk built in their approved drawings? I doubt there is.
So it's on I sent you the resolution. It's on the conditions of approval. It's on that document. But
So if I may add to this.
we're kind of getting a little too deep in here in conversation.
If I may add to the discussion, and I agree with Commissioner Reader, that our inspectors go out there with a set of plans. And that's their guidance, and they look for things that are shown on the plans. And to the extent that things aren't written, they need to be aware of those conditions of approval. So what I would suggest to the commission before you go with so many hours of researching and putting a document together, maybe we can start looking at these alleged deficiencies and missing items and confirm that they were actually not built to the plan. If that's the case, perhaps we have a bigger problem, not just the amenities that were discussed here. So that's what I would suggest. Maybe let's look at them case by case, on a case by case basis, and make sure that things are not missed from the plans. That would be my suggestion. If that helps.
So let me follow up and talk to my inspector tomorrow and have him give me an update, and I'll follow up with you.
All right. Anything else that anybody wants to put on the agenda? All right.
I just do want to put an agenda as to possibly canceling December's.
Oh, yes. Correct. So a future agenda item would be to cancel December's meeting. Thank you, Chad. Okay. All right. So adjourn to the next regular meeting on November 26th at 6 p.m.